So I wanted to continue the conversation with this distinguished panel. We are the organizers and the hosts of the Old Parkland Conference, and I'm joined here by my far right, Ian Rowe, who is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, Shelby Steele, who is at the Hoover Institution, and Glenn Loury, who is an economist at Brown University and also a fellow at the Manhattan Institute. And as the senior member of our team, Mr. Steele, I thought I would start with you.
That's you. That's not me.
It's actually a question for all of you, but I'll start with you, Shelby. Why did you want to be part of this conference? Why did you think it was important to do this? And what do you expect to get out of it? What do you hope we're going to accomplish here?
Maybe not much. No, I expected what I wanted was just engagement of a group of people like this. My goodness. Every single way you turn is a fascinating conversation that would be enlightening, and where else would there ever be a gathering like this? So I wasn't necessarily looking for us to create a new organization or a social movement but rather simply to engage each other, hear what other people think, and learn from it. This is really, I stop people in the street to find out what they think. Now everybody is here.
Okay. Ian, same question. Why did you want to be part of this, and what are we trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is such an incredible honor to be here. In addition to being a senior fellow, for those of you who know me, for the last 10 years, I ran a network of public charter schools in the heart of the South Bronx and the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And, we had about 2,000 students, almost all low income, almost all black and Hispanic students. And we had nearly 5,000 kids on our wait list. And that's indicative of a larger issue across the country, where in charter schools, you've got about 5 million kids in charter schools, predominantly low-income black and Hispanic, and almost 3 million on wait lists. Just indicative of the fact that there are families that are desperate for nothing more than a great education for their kids. When they hear these elites eschewing school choice while they're practicing school choice in their own lives, they're inhibiting the ability for people who just want a fair shot at the American dream. So that's why I'm here. And when I thought about this conference, the word that keeps coming to mind is courage. When you listen to Thomas Sowell's speech, you heard him say, the so-called black spokespeople, end quotes. You hear him say that? Who are benefiting from a lot of these failed policies, and we have a whole new regime of those very same people. I had to share this quote from the latest Ibram Kendi. He was asked at an Aspen Ideas Festival to define racism, and he said, "I would define racism as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas." He said that, and the whole room laughed because they thought he was joking. Remember in grammar school, they told you never to use the word that you're trying to define but this is what passes for serious commentary in our country. And my hope is that this conference inspires courage to challenge those ideas. We do not have to accept this orthodoxy or these false prophets that people evidently seem terrified to confront.
Glenn, your thoughts?
Why am I here? Well, I am an economist and I'm black, and I want to pay tribute to Thomas Sowell, whose magnificent career over 60 years has taught us so much. But I'm here because I'm concerned about the future of my people. That's black people, and that's the American people. I watched what happened in the summer of 2020. I've seen a match put to a tinderbox. We are engaged in a battle of ideas. I think what happened at the Fairmont Conference 42 years ago was about ideas. I think that battle still rages. I'm going to go down swinging. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
Well, let me follow up, Glenn. You mentioned you're an economist. Let me ask you, as an economist, you mentioned that this is a battle of ideas. One of the ideas that the left in general has put forward is that the real problem in terms of racial inequality in this country is capitalism, that it doesn't work. And it certainly doesn't work to close these gaps that we all want to see narrowed, if not closed entirely, and that we need to stop going down this route. We need to move toward a larger welfare state, something in line with what you see in the social democracies of Western Europe, if we want to see less inequality. How do you respond to that argument as an economist?
I think it's mistaken. I think the history of the 20th century demonstrates its error. I mean, you make this point in your opening remarks. I mean, you said that when the economy prospers, when there's economic growth, when there's a tight labor market, that's good for people at the bottom, and I think that's what the data show. But I think the point is much deeper than that. I mean, capitalism, if I may say so, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, is the foundation of our prosperity. It's what makes possible the idea that we would have social justice. I mean, without the dynamism, without the incentives, without the aspiration to accumulate wealth, without the ingenuity, without the creativity, without starting new companies, without creating new ideas, without the hope that people have that they can make their lives better through their own efforts, we're done. This is a dynamic, open society. When people march with their feet looking for better lives, this is where they want to come. Capitalism is at the foundation of what makes possible the prosperity for the American society. Is it perfect? No. Is there a need for regulation and so forth? Of course. But the idea that you would adopt a centralized social control, government-dominated way of allocating resources and making social decisions, that's the road to serfdom. Who said that? So, I mean, in the universities where I live, racial capitalism is all the rage in the Afro Studies department and the critical theory departments and whatnot. They have in mind slavery. They say the rise of Europe, the domination of white people over the global thing. It's all pie in the sky. On the ground, where people live, where they vote with their feet, open markets, free society, private property, the accumulation of wealth, striving to do better for yourself and your families. That's the ticket.
Shelby, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, to what Glenn said, but I also wanted to find out if you can look back over the past 3 or 4 decades and see some positive
Old as I am.
some positive developments. What has encouraged you about what you've seen, and where have you been the most disturbed by what you've seen?
The most positive development is an easy one, though. I think it's an easy one. It is that the racial oppression of black people in America is over with. It's really gone. And
But Shelby, let me just push back a little bit. There's an argument that says, if it's gone, why isn't there more black prosperity? Why isn't there more evenness in outcomes?
that's exactly the point.
How can those two things both be true?
Because I call it freedom, shock of freedom. Freedom is the scariest thing in the world. To suddenly find yourself free, and this came to me just sort of walking around one day. I realized that as a black American, you're preoccupied all your life with this business of oppression and so forth. And it occurred to me, I'm a free man. I can do anything I want. I can chase any dream. I can make myself a billionaire. I can make myself a petty thief. I can do any of those things. Why don't I just get up and go do it? And you know, I think that comes back to a symbiotic relationship in America between whites and blacks. We neglect our history sometimes. You go through 4 centuries of abuse of a people. Then finally, as I think we did in the 60s, you come clean and confess to that, and you acknowledge it. You become accountable. And what has happened in America is white Americans, rightly or wrongly, have become accountable for the sins of their forefathers, whether they realize it or not. And blacks, on the other hand, have said, ooh, they finally admitted it. That's our ticket to ride. And so we create a whole grievance industry, basically designed to shake down white guilt. That is our ticket to ride. And it has corrupted everything. It's corrupted what happens in why public schools fell to pieces. We have it there, and it's worse from my personal point of view. Look what we do, what that symbiosis does to black kids. We're basically training them to put on a shirt of victimization, to grow up and become a good victim, because you're valuable that way. But as an individual, you're just an inferior minority. And so and why do whites keep giving things to this grievance industry? Why do they keep paying them off? Because whites now need redemption. They need to disidentify with the shameful past. And so we have wokeness. Well, what is wokeism? Wokeism is simply a way for white people to avoid being called a racist, or to have some defense against the charge of racism. That's all it is. It has no interest whatsoever in the actual development of this underdeveloped people. They stay underdeveloped. The rest of us that play this game, but they stay underdeveloped. Well, that symbiotic bond, and whites are, look at the corporate world today, ultra woke, in every walk of life, there it is. Well, we're trapped, and we can't get out, and whites will say, well, I don't believe that the check I'm writing is going to do any good. Probably not. But I want to be able to say I wrote it.
Oof.
That's what's important to me. So you can develop it if you don't want it or not. But I need this badge that says I wrote the check. And I can get up and go to work, and so we're up against that. We're 4 centuries of oppression. We're just trying to find our way out of that. And here, we're desperate, in other words. We're at the bottom. And we get people who then exploit that and give us an investment in the bottom. That's where I'll get over. That's where I'll make my money. That's where I'll make my future. And so they hate blacks like us because we're saying don't trade on your weakness and on your you can do it. And they said, well, look at what happens in the university. Why should I do it? I can get a job here in the diversity department and do just fine. And so it goes on and on.
Ian, do you have anything to add to that?
Wow.
Well,
Well, one of the things I think is so important, again, in this conference and beyond, is that we have to put our virtues and our beliefs in action and actually demonstrate that we can build institutions that are diametrically opposed to this idea that if you're young and black, you are inherently a victim solely based on skin color. I mean, that's why I run schools in the heart of the South Bronx. I want kids to know that they can do hard things. You know, none of our parents enter the lottery for our schools because they, I've never in my 10 plus years running schools have parents said to me, I want you to teach my kid that America is an inherently oppressive country and that because of your skin color, you have no shot, that the system is rigged against you. Exactly the opposite. And so I would just counter you, Shelby, that this is why, we're not, we often talk about the racial achievement gap in education. Well, between white and blacks, virtually 100% of my kids are black or Hispanic. So we don't have time to worry about how are our kids doing against white kids, because why is that even the standard? And ironically, and I know Checker Finn is in the room, who's just written a great book about the National Assessment for Educational Progress, the nation's report card. In the entire history of NAEP, since 1992, there has never been a situation in which a majority of white students are reading at grade level, at 4th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade, right? So it's unlikely that systemic racism is the reason that white kids are not reading at grade level, and closing the racial achievement gap would solely mean that we would have achieved universal mediocrity, right? So the reason that, so the reason that's important is that we have to dissect all of the reasons why our kids are not succeeding. Is it more related to more unstable family structures, lack of school choice, lack of rigorous curriculum in schools? That's what we have to dive into. So it's not a hopeless situation, but the onus is on us to build the institutions that demonstrate what's possible for our kids.
Glenn, and I will open it up to questions shortly from the audience. But Glenn, since we're in the school space here, one of the developments in recent years I find most troubling is the attack on meritocracy in our schools in the name of helping black people. To me, it's an attitude that these black kids will never catch up, so we have to stop measuring. We have to get rid of entrance exams, whether it's to a specialized high school, whether it's to a gifted and talented program, whether it's to college. Get rid of the SAT. Yeah. Get rid of the LSAT. That's how we'll get the parity that we desire, because they're just never going to otherwise catch up. And I wonder what you make of these developments that we've seen in recent years.
Well, it's very distressing. I mean, it is a corollary, I think, to the observation about corruption that this client-patron racial dynamic that Shelby has outlined brilliantly in his books brings into play. And it's, I mean, if the goal is equality for African Americans, it's fundamentally inconsistent with achieving that goal. And I think we have to face up to something that's not exactly pretty, but I think is just the existential reality of our condition, which is that given the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow exclusion and whatnot, given the suppression and oppression, that's a historical fact, the diminishment of African Americans as a consequence of that oppression, not that there wasn't valiant accomplishment that took place under those conditions, but nevertheless, given that, there's something that has to be demonstrated here, which is that we're fit for equal participation and equal performance within the modern civilization that we inhabit. I have no doubt that we are, but that has to actually be demonstrated. Don't take away the guidelines that I was going to use to show you my fitness. I was going to pass the test. I was going to excel at the standard. I was going to be brilliant at the measure that you apply to everybody of our fitness. But instead, you patronize me. You treat me like a child. You pat me on the head. You implicitly convey your lack of confidence in my capacity to perform. You rob me of the only way that I was going to ever be your equal. Equality, real, genuine equality. Not optics equality, not titular equality, not patron-client equality, performance equality is the only way that we're going to get out of the box, it seems to me.
Yes.
So this corruption is fundamental, and moreover, you're trashing your own institutions when you do it, because when you get rid of the test, you get rid of it for everybody, not just for me.
Yeah.
You water down, you dumb down, you equivocate, you grade inflate. So maybe we black folk here, those brave few of us who are prepared to stand for something, are a canary in the miner's coal mine, sounding an alarm for the country as a whole as we slide into this pit.
Before we turn it over to the audience, Shelby, would you like to add anything? Say, before we turn it over to the audience, would you like to add any?
Well, I would only echo what my friend here just said. This symbiotic, this white guilt is a reflection, I think, of the fact that whites, what the oppressor did, when we were oppressed for 4 centuries, is what I call inferiorization. He transformed us into an inferior human stock and based his entire move for power and exploitation of us on this basis of our inferiority. And he oppressed us so that it was self-evident in the world. We looked inferior. We behaved inferior. And we had absorbed that and came to feel that way about ourselves. So Glenn is absolutely right. We have to literally, in the real world, prove that that inferiority is bogus. But that's his last mark on us. That's what liberalism does. It keeps marking us over and over with this inferiority. And we see it and act on us as though we were inferior. We don't know how to be different than that. That's a challenge that it seems to me we have to face. And it's the enemy within that oppression left us with.